shortly before 6:30 a.m. Saturday, September 21st, 2019, Calvin Cast 9 on the Oval at the former Plattsburgh Air Force Base. The bikers have obviously been gathering for quite some time because there's quite a number of them here as we get set for North Country Honor Flight number 30. Hard to believe it. We've witnessed 30 of these send-offs, but we're about to witness our number 30. It's about 52 degrees when we shut our vehicle off, so it's not an unpleasant day. It's supposed to reach the 80s here. Not sure how hot it's going to get in Washington, D.C., where the honor flight heads, but it's probably going to be extremely warm September 21st. But I'll check to see if somebody involved has the weather forecast. I forget the exact count of the number of people who have been on these flights in the previous 29 flights, but I know one of the people who went on flight number 29 is standing right next to me. You and a couple of your brothers.
That's right.
What's your name?
My name is Leeward Miller.
And you got a brother from what? Highgate, is it? Where's your...
My brother from Highgate, Vermont. My brother from Chazy, New York.
Roger cuts my hair every 12 weeks.
And my brother-in-law from Chazy, Raymond Hostler. Yeah. I had another brother, but he lives in Jacksonville Beach, Florida.
Too long to drive.
Too long of a drive, yeah. It's really a nice day. Beautiful.
You enjoyed it, huh?
Very much, very much.
And you were telling Ross O'Loughlin and I that you got a little envelope, the mail call.
We all had mail call, and there was letters from all over. A lot of the schools and a lot of people from the area wrote us all letters. It was very, very, very nice. Very nice. Good souvenir.
You were the Vietnam era, obviously.
Right.
But you had one kid who thought you were a little bit older than that. Is that true?
Yeah, one little guy wrote me a nice. I drew a nice big picture, and he thanked me for fighting in the Battle of Plattsburgh. He tried.
That was only 205 years ago.
That's all right. He meant well. I did too.
I bet you kept that letter.
Oh, I got them all. They're all souvenirs. I got them all. Yeah. We got another beautiful day.
Yeah. So, are you and your brothers able to hang around much in D.C., or did you get separated a little bit?
No. The tours were all right there. We got to meet Bob Dole.
Yeah.
And Elisa Stefani. She spent quite a bit of time with us. It was nice, very, very nice. It's well set up.
Yeah, that's amazing. And that bus driver gets you through traffic in a hurry, doesn't he?
Yeah. We didn't miss anything at all, But we got to spend some time at each place, and it was really nice. Yeah.
All right. So I think they're glad the whole family went. It must have been a little extra special with the family going along with you.
That's what it was, the whole thing. And the turnout here in the morning, it was something.
Oh, it's amazing.
It makes you look around,
And what amazes me too is these people in D.C. show up for a bunch of people from the Clinton County area and around. And
when we come off the airplane in D.C., where we were in the terminal, it was packed with people.
I know.
And when we left to come back,
we're back again.
Yeah.
It's incredible. The dedication they have.
The support.
It's nice that people from our area show up for this, but for people from there to show up to honor people from up this way is just amazing.
That's right.
All right, thank you, Lee. Thanks for chatting with us.
Nice talking to you.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Honor Flight number 30. As As of today, we'll have sent 450 North Country Honor Flight veterans down to a day of a lifetime in Washington. First off, I'd like to thank everybody that came out today. The riders that were out there so early, again, as they always are, the law enforcement that all blends in and helps us out immensely. Everybody starts so early. It's just amazing the help we get. This flight was a little concerning to us. When we added on a flight, we asked the question of ourselves, how many times are we going to get people to come out here and support this? And obviously, by the size of the crowd today, congratulations to everybody that came today. We appreciate that. This flight today is kind of special in a lot of ways, especially when you go back to the beginnings of Honor Flight. Back then, we had a volunteer by the name of Jim Trashy Fountain. Jim was at the beginning of the whole thing and was instrumental in getting everything going. You'll see the Honor Flight float in the parades around different towns, and Jim built that and had it ready for Honor Flight, and that's just one of many examples. This whole process that got started, Jim was very heavy into getting going, so we appreciated Jim. Unfortunately, we lost him at a very young age of 50, and we still missed him to this day. And today's the day that we get to show our thanks for what he did and what he accomplished. So today's flight is called the Jim Trashy Fountain Memorial Flight. Jim was also the president of the Hog chapter up here in Plattsburgh. The Hogs, which stands for Harley Owner Group, have sponsored this flight. They've done a couple of fundraisers, and they did a great job at it. They did a couple of bowling tournaments that raised the $12,000 to pay for this flight. So thank you to the Hog chapter as well. Please remember, our next flight is on October 12th, and we hope to see everybody back here again. And once again, thanks for coming. And here's our Master of Ceremonies. Once again, he does such a wonderful job. From Mountain Lake PBS, Mr. Tom Hollick.
Good morning, everyone. What a fantastic September morning. Thank you for coming. We're going to kick things off this morning with the H&H Music Vocal Ensemble right here with us to begin with the national anthem.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say, does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Thank you very much. Please remain standing if you would for the Pledge of Allegiance. Joining us this morning, Boy Scouts Troop BSA 8039 and BSA 8046.
Scout salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all. Two.
Thank you. I I'd like to introduce some of our elected officials who are here with us this morning. Plattsburgh Mayor Colin Reed is here. Colin is actually going along on the flight this morning to Washington, D.C. Next to Colin, New York State Assemblyman Billy Jones is here. And also Plattsburgh Town Supervisor Michael Cashman is joining us as well. And it is now my pleasure to introduce the Morrisonville Elementary School and their choir. They are going to sing their original song, Red, White, and Blue, which is always a very special part of this ceremony. Under the direction of Heidi Glover. Thank you very much. I would now like to introduce Gary Liberty, who will name the Lost Honor Flight veterans. Good morning.
Good morning. If you look around at all the veterans that are here, as well as the ones that are going down today, this is a fraternity, if you will. There's a closeness that gets built between the veterans as we go through the military rituals every day. So we want to make sure that we get as many veterans down as we can. So if you know any veteran, whether it's a World War II vet, a Korean vet, Vietnam vet, by all means mention it to them. Some guys will say, hey, I don't need to go. Yes, they do. So if you can't talk them into it, tell us. Let us know. Let somebody up here know, because we'll go talk to them. We'll take a vet with us that's been down there. It's well worth their time. So please, if you think of anybody, let us know. I want to recognize one gentleman who chose not to go and recently passed away, Timothy Trainer. But he remembered Honor Flight. He said, you know, if you wanted to make any donations, do it to Honor Flight. We want to remember him. So at this time, if you would, turn and face the flag as Post 20 plays taps, renders the rifle salute. We also have a song played by the police, pipes, and drum. Thank you.
Thank you. I would now like to introduce Director of Operations Janet Dupree for the bios of our veterans as they receive their travel orders. Good morning.
morning. It's such an honor, as always, for me to be able to recognize each and every veteran with the dignity and respect which they have all earned. Earl Brooking, Army, 1969-1972, Vietnam, Spec 4. Earl was drafted by lottery and remembers his number. It was 123. He served as a military policeman at the demilitarized zone Panmunjom, Korea. He said he was likely the most hated military policeman by the North Koreans. A mainstay of their mission was joint security with the South Koreans. During a MAC meeting, the North Korean troops beat up one of Earl's friends, resulting in a brain injury that required surgery. Earl had the opportunity to view the buses transporting the released prisoners of war from the USS Pueblo. Watching them leave North Korea, getting through the checkpoint, and crossing the bridge into South Korea was a great moment. Earl Brooking. Robert Cross, Air Force, 1956-1960, Vietnam, Spec 4, Army Reserves, 22 and a half years, E5. Bob was working an international paper when he enlisted. He and another guy were the only two who passed a bypass test as auto mechanics. They thought they were pretty smart until finding out they had 12 weeks of basic training instead of the 6 weeks. At Myrtle Beach, they were housed in old barracks with a good view of the stars right through the roof. Bob went to Elmendorf Air Force Base in Anchorage, Alaska, where he experienced the blizzard of 1959. Attempting to pull two new 57 Chevy pickup trucks out of the snow, he destroyed the trucks. The colonel scared him to death, threatening to make him pay for those trucks. In the National Guard, Bob became a platoon sergeant and enjoyed his time in the service. Robert Cross. Robert Dumas, Marines, 1968 to 1972, Vietnam, Sergeant E5. Bob served in the 1st Marine Division during the 2nd Tet Offense. A member of the 5th Marine Battalion, he protected areas such as Liberty Bridge, Arizona Territorial, and Charlie Ridge. Bob started with an M7 grenade gun before becoming a rifleman, point man, and radio operator. He always liked law enforcement and was one of the first Marine military policemen. They had 8 weeks of training at an Army base, and he said the interaction between the Army troops and the Marines wasn't real cordial. He was at Cherry Point, North Carolina, when the first English Harrier plane became part of the fleet. The plane had vertical takeoffs with its wings turned face down. Often they would flip over and crash. Bob left the Marines to return home to family. Robert Dumas. David Gordon, Army, 1967 to 1970, Vietnam, E5. Dave's tour began as a heavy equipment operator with the 62nd Engineer Battalion at Long Binh. At the Mekong Delta with the 7th 1st Cavalry Division, he brought in equipment to maintain and build bridges, airstrips, and compounds. Because of his unique specialty as a crane operator, Dave moved all over Vietnam. Home for leave, he expected to be stationed in the U.S., but was shipped to Germany as a platoon leader for the 249th Engineer Squad. Two competing teams built a flotation bridge across the Rhine River. Reaching the middle first, Dave teams won the competition, and a 4-star general drove a tank across the bridge. Dave came home, married his wife Barbara, who returned to Germany with him for a long honeymoon. David Gordon. George Howard, Air Force, 1969-1980, Vietnam, aircraft mechanic. George went to McClellan Air Force Base for aircraft mechanic training. He came home when his father died, returned to California, and married his wife before deploying to Vietnam. For the 362nd Technical Electrical Warfare Squadron, TEWS, he was at Plaquemine Air Force Base, bringing in materials to support Army and Marine servicemen. He was sent to Dover Air Force Base, working on the C-5 and 141 planes. His next transfer was to Plattsburgh Air Force Base, where he spent 8 years as a supervisor on the KC-135s. Not wanting to go to Turkey, George left the Air Force to be home with his family of 3 young children. His youngest daughter, Leslie, received ROTC mechanic training and served the same 135s 30 years after her dad worked on those planes. George Howard. Ronald Kautz, Air Force, 1970 to 1990, Vietnam E-7. In 1968, Ron's brother was wounded in Vietnam, losing his left hand and left eye. He would only say it was some kind of explosion, as he spent 2.5 years at Valley Forge, Pennsylvania Hospital. Anticipating a draft notice, Ron's dad said to him, remember, he wasn't bulletproof, and he decided to join the Air Force. Ron, also known as Wolf, served 9 years in Southeast Asia, including the Philippines, Vietnam, and Thailand as a fighter jet mechanic on the F-4s, a great fighter plane. Wolf loved what he did, and it was an honor to serve with everybody. He credits his dad with teaching him responsibility and how to be a strong leader. Ron said he felt every place he was stationed was where he was meant to be, and his 20 years of service reinforced his love for our country. Ronald Kautz. David Lawrence, Air Force, 1958-1985, Vietnam, Chief Master Sergeant, E-9. Dave began his maintenance career at Plattsburgh Air Force Base, going around the world on B-45s and 130s from 1958 to 1962. When stationed in Okinawa, he flew into Saigon and Thailand on gunships. They worked for the troops, Army, Marines, Navy, with the airplanes and felt supported by all. At McGuire, headquarters for the 130s, Dave spent 5 years with the 21st Air Force. His wife wanted to come home, so Dave and their family returned to the base of his beginning, and from 1975 until his retirement in 1980, he was at Plattsburgh Air Force Base. He had a great career and he enjoyed the time at the base so much, he later joined the team at Park. David Lawrence. Ronald Marino, Navy, 1960 to 1965, Vietnam, Petty Officer 2nd. Reserves, 1978 to 2003, Senior Chief Petty Officer. Ron was assigned to the USS Tanner AGS-15, perusing the South Atlantic as cryptographers made maps. Ron next headed to the Bering Strait. Each day they had an unwelcome Russian ship escort skeptical of the U.S. ship's mission. One sunny day, as the crew relaxed, a new guy decided to fly a kite. About 50 yards away, the kite got caught in the Russian cruiser's antenna. Alarms went off and turrets were uncovered. Lots of messages went back and forth, and Ron thought that day might not end well. Fortunately, it did. As Senior Chief at the Albany Reserve Center, Ron had 450 enlisted under his command. Ronald Marino. John Mashter, Marines, 1967-1969, Vietnam, E-3. John served as a machine gunner with the Special Forces Unit 27 near Phu Bai. He said their main mission was reconnaissance, and they came under heavy fire much of the time. He was injured in Vietnam and hospitalized on Long Island. He served in military police duty for a time prior to his discharge at Camp Lejeune, North Carolina. Like so many Vietnam veterans, John said when they returned home, they weren't treated well. It was particularly difficult when friends questioned him about his patriotism, and it was hard not to be bitter. John and his wife Bernadette have been married 51 years, and he credits his loving wife with helping him to overcome some of the residual issues of Vietnam. John Mashter. James McCardle, Navy, 1961-1966, Vietnam, Yeoman E-4. Jim was assigned to the USS Enterprise as one of 3 ships forming the Nuclear Task Force. Along with the USS Bainbridge and USS Long Beach, these ships circled the globe. First stop, Gibraltar. Crossing the equator, the prime meridian, sailed to Cape Good Hope and on to Karachi, Pakistan. After sailing through the Indian Ocean, they crossed the equator for the third time onto Sydney, Australia, heading to South America around Cape Horn, Chile, Argentina, Rio de Janeiro, and finally returning to Norfolk, Virginia. He was discharged in Jacksonville, Florida, and 2 days later, Jim was home. He certainly gives credence to the saying, join the Navy and see the world. But he also realized there's no better place to live than right here in our North Country. James McCardle. Glenn Miller, Air Force, 1962-1967, Vietnam, Airman First Class. With the 817 Civil Engineering Squadron at Plattsburgh Air Force Base, Glenn worked as a carpenter on 5 of the 12 local missile sites. Glenn went to Guam and had the opportunity to set up for the Bob Hope Show, going backstage and meeting several stars. He admitted Bob Hope is the only guy he remembers from the show. But he quickly recalled such celebrities as Ann Margaret, Raquel Welch, and Joey Heatherton. He received orders to go to Vietnam with the Prime Beef team. They were on call to deploy as needed and even got on the taxiway, but never actually took off. Glenn got orders for a 9-month extension to the Philippines without any time to come home, so he decided not to re-enlist and was discharged from Pease Air Force Base. Glenn Miller. Thomas Murphy, Army, 1967-1970, Vietnam, Staff Sergeant E6, Reserve Sergeant First Class E7, 29 total years. Tom enlisted and was sent to Fort Leonard Wood in Missouri, planning to train in combat engineering. The sergeant told the troops they were going to be cooks. As they protested, the sergeant said, when a guy with 2 stars on his shoulder says you're going to be cooks, you're going to be cooks. With his new profession, Tom began to spend 7 months in Vietnam, stationed at Quy Nhon. Eligible to return to the U.S. in November, he didn't want to be cold, so he extended for 7 months. Once home, Tom joined the Plattsburgh 967 Army Reserves. After his first enlistment, a civilian technician told Tom he'd signed his name, re-enlisting for another 6 years. Tom's wife also told me he doesn't cook at home. Thomas Murphy. David Potachin, Air Force, 1965 to 1963, Vietnam Security Police, E6. David completed basic training at Travis Air Force Base near his hometown of Fresno, California. In 1966, he volunteered for the buildup in Vietnam, serving 13 months there. At Tan Son Nhut on December 4th, the Viet Cong started an attack that lasted 36 straight hours, using grenade launchers and blowing up planes. David was stationed in England when he and Wendy married, spent 3 years at Vandenberg Air Force Base, 15 months in Guam. While in Minot, North Dakota, a B-52 plane blew up during refueling on the runway, killing 2 crew members. From Minot, he went back to England for 3 years before his final assignment at Plattsburgh Air Force Base and their wise decision to live here. David Potachin. James Russell, Navy, 1967 to 1977, Vietnam, E6. Jim was an instructor teaching computer technician on missiles. Jim was an instructor teaching computer technicians on missile fire control radar. He received engineering consulting from the University of Chicago as he spent 3 years at sea working on then new innovative programs. The USS Luce DLG-7 was a guided missile destroyer, and the USS Providence CLG-6 was a light missile cruiser. Jim had the opportunity to work with the first digital computer for missile Doppler radar and Doppler computer. When Jim was stationed at Great Lakes, Illinois, it was his 13th move in 10 years. Jim said the Navy provided him with an excellent education, so he got great jobs after his service time. He liked everything about his 10 years in the Navy. James Russell. William Spellman, Army, 1966-1968, Vietnam, E4. William, who prefers fuzzy, was drafted and completed basic training at Fort Dix. Deployed to Vietnam, he spent 30 days on a troop ship with 3,500 guys. Fuzzy spent 11 months in Vietnam, returning to the States before the Tet Offenses. A year later, Fuzzy's best friend from youth, Mike Connolly, was shot by a sniper on his first day in Vietnam. Mike succumbed to his injuries in a hospital shortly thereafter. Prior to his discharge, Fuzzy was stationed at Dugway, Utah, proving grounds where they tested chemical warfare. Fuzzy is proud to have served his country and would do it all over again. As we've completed our veteran introductions, I ask you to join me in one more round of applause that will show all of our Flight Number 30 Vietnam veterans. They are receiving the respect and honor they didn't receive more than 50 years ago. It's been too long coming, so let's make it a sincere and really loud thank you for their service, being part of this community and part of our Honor Flight family. Gentlemen, thank you.
Thank you, Janet. I would now like to introduce Mike Farrow with our closing prayer.
Thank you, Janet. That's how I was going to close the prayer. Good morning. This is a special day. I've been asking those that have been involved with Honor Flight as to whether or not we have had a flight that has not had a World War II veteran on the flight. And to the best of our knowledge, there may have been one other, but at this point, this is truly a transition. General Douglas MacArthur addressed the world via live radio from the USS Missouri while anchored in Tokyo Bay on September 2nd, 1945, after the Japanese surrender. And I quote, "As I look back upon the long, torturous trail from those grim days of Bataan and Corregidor, when an entire world lived in fear, when democracy was on the defensive everywhere, when modern civilization trembled in the balance, I thank a merciful God that He has given us the faith, the courage, and the power from which to mold victory. World War II was the last war we, the United States of America, went to fight with only one objective: victory. Today, we honor those who served and fought with the objective of containment. The Korean and the Vietnam-era servicemen were sent to and returned home to a completely different sentiment than their brothers in arms from World War II. The American pomp and the fanfare for our brave servicemen quickly disappeared during the Vietnam era. In fact, they were often vilified and spat upon. It is my hope and prayer that today, as we begin to transition from the World War II vets to the Korean and especially the Vietnam vets, we as a community will give these servicemen every ounce of respect they are due. That we reintroduce what they so rightly deserve. This morning we send them as heroes. Tonight, let us receive them with a long, long overdue gratitude and heartfelt thank you for their service. Most important of all, we want to offer them a loving welcome home. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to do it anyway, as Janet just did. Let us hold nothing back, and let us give our all in applause for Flight Number 30. Let us pray. Heavenly Father, this is a day that you have made. Let us rejoice and be glad in it. Be with flight number 30 and grant them safety while traveling. Let new friendships be forged. May this day be a day of salvation and a day of healing. Thank you for shining upon them this day. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen. May God bless America and may God bless flight number 30. Y'all have a great day.
Thank you, Mike. Folks, move right in now. We're going to get ready to have the vets get on the bus. We want to thank you for attending this morning. You, of course, are welcome to join the motorcade, the parade over to the airport. Quite a spectacular sight on New York Road as our local fire departments line the route to salute our veterans. Remember, tonight at 8:30, around 8:30, our veterans will be returning back to the airport. We hope you can make it there to welcome them back home after their special day in Washington. Please join us now as Flight Leader Danielle Kuhn introduces our veterans for our Walk of Honor as they board the Honor Flight bus. Bobby D.
Earl Brookie, United States Army. Robert Cross, United States Air Force. United States Marine Corps. David Gordon, United States Army. George Howard, United States Air Force. Robert Scott, United States Air Force. Robert, United States Air Force. David Lawrence, United States Air Force.
now move to the Plattsburgh International Airport and the former Plattsburgh Air Force Base, also a part, just as is the oval where we're at. As usual, American Legion Post 912 from Rouse's Point is here, and Knights of Columbus Color Guard is here. Barry Finnegan, the head man at the North Country Honor Flight, has arrived. And thanks to a dedicated state trooper, we got here in record time. We appreciate her helping us get here. Please appreciate all the effort the state police put into making sure we got here ahead of the parade, so we can get the bikes coming through again as the 30th North Country Honor Flight arrives here at Plattsburgh International Airport. The bus will come in on our left. The bikes will come in here on our right. Plattsburgh City Police waiting it. Officially, I counted 116 bikes here for this entourage. Amazing. But the bikes have been with us right from the very beginning. The first flight actually went out of Albany. They had a ceremony here, and the flight entourage made its way down to the Albany airport, and those bikers rode there on a 30-degree temperature from Plattsburgh to Albany.
flight. Have a good flight. Have a good flight.
Thank you.
Have a good flight.
Thank you. Thank you. And that looks like it's veteran number 15. So as always, we'll follow them through into the airport.
Oh, boy.
And they really expedited things here. They used to have the sign in, but starting with the last flight, they go directly upstairs now. And
Stairs, elevator, I'll take the
really expedited things here at when they arrive at the airport.
Yeah, I want to give this.
It doesn't hurt to remind everyone that this bus was a gift from the El Sabo Valley School District. A whole lot of work was done to get it in the shape it's in. And on the side of the bus is the list of every person who has gone on the honor flight thus far. So there's not much more room in that row. So they'll be starting a new row either with this when this flight is concluded or the conclusion of the October 12th flight. And we also like to end with a view of the corner here, our little corner. Gordy Little and I got involved with this right from the very beginning as soon as we heard about it. We went to an early meeting and covered that and covered every honor flight. Gordy was out of town a few times, but every time there was an honor flight and he was in town, we were there. And of course, I've been proud to be able to have covered all 30 of them, and so far, and hope to cover at least another 30. So this is viewer-supported local television, hometown cable. If you appreciate Hometown Cable's coverage, we'd appreciate your support, and don't forget to support the North Country Honor Flight. Thanks for watching.